What's up, everybody? It's Coach Dave, and I lift.
Coach Carol, I also lift. Welcome to the She Lifts.
He Lifts podcast, and tonight we are breaking down our top 5 favorite influencers. That's right, it's episode 50, so that means it is 5 on 5 time, and we are going to talk about the people that got us here, the people that made us want to do this for a living. We've talked about that before, and there's different things that have inspired us to be here. I've talked about my personal journey with health and fitness and the fact that I was athletic. And even though I was athletic and I played sports, I was never really at least not consciously into fitness. I enjoyed working out, but I never really understood why I was doing the things I just did whatever my coach or trainer at the time told me to do. So, and I didn't hate it, except for the running part.
As you should.
As I should, right?
You should hate that.
Actually, it was worse when I played hockey because then you'd run and then you'd have to skate laps that. But at the end of the day, until I started my own fitness journey and then started diving into more research of that's what got me into it. Carol's talked about her journey through fitness and how she was an athletic, and she you said at 40 is really when you sort of got into this?
Yeah, when I had really high cholesterol.
Right. So a trip to the doctor is what you got in this. So let's break it down. Carol, why don't you get us started and talk about the first person that influenced you?
Well, so it's not necessarily the first person, but like my number 5 pick, these are people that I follow. And there's a guy out there on Instagram.
Oh, real quick. There are a few caveats to this, by the way. First of all, they are not people that we know. These are
fitness
influencers, and these are not
kind of like us.
Kind of right.
But maybe more popular.
Probably. They probably have a few more followers than we do.
So you need to like and share.
And comment.
Anyway.
So they can't be our mentors, the people that we go to, the people we do. They also can't be Arnold.
No.
Okay? Because he influenced us all, whether we like to admit it or not.
Okay. So my number 5 is a guy that I follow on Instagram, and his handle is Gains by Pat.
Okay.
First of all, he is just funny. He is hysterical. And I like how he is super knowledgeable about, lifting and working out, but he's also super realistic and funny about it. It gets your attention. Like when he does a video and he's out there shaking his arms. Now the guy is built really well, but if he shakes his arms, which I won't do on camera, he's got the skin, the flap under the arms that shakes. And it's all about like, hey, you know what? This is basically normal. But when he flexes and he's doing his thing, that muscle is tight and it's toned. So he's realistic, and I love that about him.
Cool. So my number 5 is a guy by the name of Greg Doucette, who is not always the most popular guy among other fitness influencers.
Okay.
The reason I like him is because he is not afraid to call out BS. One, he's not also afraid to admit, this worked for me. This is why I don't like this, even though so many other people did it. This is what I don't like about it. I'll give you an example. He doesn't like to do ass to grass squats. Okay. Some people swear that you should be trying to get as low as possible. He said, no, there's no reason to get below parallel. Some of his more recent stuff, he's actually taken to commenting on some other fitness influencers, particularly the ones who give fitness influencers a bad name.
Okay.
He is also not afraid to talk about he was a competitive bodybuilder, and at some point in his career as a competitive bodybuilder, how he did use anabolic agents to help his physique. What I like most about him, and this is where I really got into is the fact that he is much like I do with Coach Dave's Country Kitchen. He looks at recipes, and he has a similar approach to nutrition that I do. Is how do I make the food that I like into a higher protein or a lower calorie? He has 2 or 3 versions of his cookbook that he sells. I really like him. Also, like you said, I find him entertaining and a little bit funny. So
not as funny as us.
Not as funny as us. No,
nobody is.
Okay.
That's a lie.
That is a total lie.
My number 4.
Yeah.
Do you know James Grage?
I do not know James Grage.
So if you look up James Grage, first of all, he's got an interesting story because he had a horrific accident years ago and had to basically just rebuild his body and his physique. And then he also went through a very long period of time where he worked out solely with resistance bands.
Ooh.
And yeah, but basically what he can tell you is like he knows the science behind the exercises, which I appreciate. And he's just, I mean, he knows his stuff. So I like him for that reason. Like, when you see him work out with resistance bands, and you know that you can feasibly get the same type of workout that you can, when you're lifting weights, if
I
you're
mean, you
not in
can
the
if
gym.
you
Yeah.
can. So actually, and I'll get to it. Get to him as one of my top influencers. Actually, he has a whole program that he sells that is total zero equipment, body weight,
That's what this guy does. Yep,
and
it's
like
bands. Hmm.
so resist. One thing I think that and we'll talk about this in another show, but I'm going to say this: resistance is resistance.
Correct.
It's not picking up weight is great, but if you can simulate that resistance, I'll tell you what. So I'm a little off topic, but this is usually a quick show anyway. Um, one of not necessarily my favorite fitness influencers, but one of my favorite athletes, Brock Lesnar. You know who that is?
I heard the name, but
Okay,
I'm not
he
no.
was a collegiate wrestler.
Okay.
Won the NCAA championship. What transitioned into professional wrestling.
Okay.
Um, became an absolute star in the WWE at 24 years old, I think. He was 6'8", 275 pounds.
Ooh.
Looks like an absolute monster
Yeah.
and can move like a cat. Got tired of the WWE schedule. Tried out for the Minnesota Vikings. Almost made the team. Decided to go to the UFC. Won the UFC heavyweight championship. Went back to the WWE. Like he's just a monster of a human being. One of the things he talked about was he didn't lift weights anymore. Now this was later in his career when he was back in the WWE, but he talked
Hmm.
about how he didn't lift weights and he did uh, pneumatic machines, basically compressed air,
Okay.
simulated resistance machines. So your body doesn't know the difference between. So
Right.
if James Gage can make an entire um, workout out of bands, I'd like to give that a shot because I think more people could
Check him
benefit from
out.
that. Yeah,
It's
check
very
that out.
interesting. Yep.
So number 4 for me is someone who we have talked about on this show before, who
Hmm.
I respect the shit out of. His name is Jeff Nippard. Jeff Nippard is a trainer. He is a trainer. He is an exercise scientist. He holds a master's, I think a PhD, and he holds and is a competitive natural bodybuilder.
Hmm.
He has never said he has never taken a steroid. Um, been on stage as completely natural. What I like most about him is that he breaks down the science behind everything. I like a lot of what he does. I like how he talks. He keeps things real. He keeps things simple. He does not necessarily go into crazy fad exercises using a lot of equipment. Most of his exercises, if you look, are pretty standard.
That's standard. Yeah.
He looks with he does he is also a competitive powerlifter, so he is big on the compound
Okay.
exercises, which some bodybuilders are not.
Right.
They want
Right.
because there is a greater risk for injury.
Yep.
So Jeff Nippard, check him out. We've talked about him on the show where we sort of broke down something that he had said.
Hmm.
I'd like to do that again sometime
Yep.
when I come across the right one that I think fits our audience.
Yep. Sure. For sure.
Number 3.
So Thomas DeLauer is a nutrition coach to professional athletes, but like what I appreciate about him the most
Okay.
is it's just complete common sense approach and the research behind his posts. So when he posts something, he talks about the science and the nerdy stuff behind what he's saying. Like for instance, he had something there the other day, and when he does these posts, he doesn't claim to be like the complete expert. So it was a post about if you eat a burger, and it doesn't matter, we're just talking any kind of, let's say it's a quarter pound hamburger, and you eat a quarter pound hamburger with a slice of avocado on it, the difference of what happens in your body as far as your body's inflammatory response. And he's not saying the beef is bad, but your body has a response to beef that they have found it does not have when you eat avocado with it.
Huh.
So it's those kind of things that make me do that, where I go, huh. And then like I'll go down the rabbit hole and research for a while, but like it's common sense. He presents information and basically says, like, I'm not saying beef is bad, but what I'm saying is avocado clearly has an anti-inflammatory effects with other foods, based on this research. Check it out. So he's pretty smart.
Most of these, and I'm going to say this: most of the people on this list are pretty smart and
Yeah.
have. When we talk about the fitness influencers, the TikTok and Instagram fitness, these are not the people that we are talking about for the most part.
Right. These, my people are all on Instagram, but I am very purposeful about who I follow and checking. We talked about this on another show. I check their credentials, I see what they're all about before I just follow whoever.
As we say that, my next pick is a professional wrestler. Right. Actually, so he's more than just a professional wrestler. He's also a professional wrestler turned actor. No, it is not The Rock. It is actually Mr. John Cena. Tell you why I like John Cena. First of all, from all accounts, he is one hell of a nice guy. He spends a lot of time during his wrestling career with doing charity work for the Make a Wish Foundation.
Okay.
Um, he is also some people who I have met along in my lifetime who have encountered him in real life have also said what an amazing human being he was. But from a fitness standpoint, obviously we know he has quite one hell of a physique. But the thing that I like most about him is he is one who is very much into lifting heavy, lifting compound lifting. He he even has gone as far as to say that he hates doing cardio. He likes lifting weights and hates doing cardio, like most of us trainers do.
Correct.
Um, As a matter of fact, in one video I watched with him in it one time, he was working out with another wrestler, and they said, "All right, what are we gonna do for cardio?" He goes, "Cardio? You mean lifting weights faster?"
Right.
Right? So I like that he has sort of this realness about him. The other thing I like about him, and really where I've learned things from him, is he is an incredibly, as most fit people are, but this is what he talks about, is an incredibly disciplined human being.
Yeah.
He talks about waking up at the same time, about how on point he is with his diet. And let me tell you
Yeah.
what, when you are doing when in the WWE, if you know anything about that, which I'm not sure how much you know about that,
Not a
but
whole lot.
they have one huge hectic schedule. They're on the road 300 days a year. They're finished up a TV show, going home for 2 days, coming back out for house shows, back to a pay per view, back to a TV show, back to a TV taping. In between, they have
Right.
appearances and projects that they're working on outside of wrestling, and somewhere in there they have to work out. So he's an incredibly disciplined individual. He talked about One of the things he talked about is how he learned how to, during his stretching sessions, he would learn. He taught himself how to learn Mandarin so he could communicate um, with overseas audiences. Yeah, pretty amazing
That's
stuff sometimes.
insane.
Yeah.
All right, so my relative new one that I follow, I found a woman on Instagram. Her handle is Danielle the dietitian, and so she is a dietitian who has her own weight loss journey, and she shares that. But she is so down to earth and realistic, and she kind of like coaches the way that I coach, which is if one of my clients were to say I ate a cupcake, I'm like, please tell me it was a good one from Flavor and you didn't waste it on like going to Wise Supermarket, like she's realistic about sometimes you eat something that may not be 100% on plan, but she's also really good about doing what you like to do with Dave's Country Kitchen. You like to do the high protein foods. She does a lot of that with the sweet foods, and she has modified them so that you really feel like you're getting something decadent and it is, in fact, high protein and pretty good for you.
There's a couple of the other sweet ones on Dave's Country Kitchen.
Yeah. So I appreciate her take on that.
So my number two, I know you have to watch this guy at some point because he does as much research as you. My only gripe with Dr. Lane Norton, who is I believe he was a bodybuilder. I know he was a power lifter. He is also very big into exercise and nutrition, specifically science.
Mm-hmm.
He is also very big into debunking a lot of what I would call scare tactics when it
Yep.
comes to the health of fitness and certain fitness influencers. He is very uh, against, and even some
Mm-hmm.
of the ones who are more popular who make outrageous claims like and I'm just kind of pulling this one out of my ass when I say this one, but like cold plunge will burn 300 times more calories than walking on the treadmill. Things like that.
Right.
Um, he is not afraid to call out some of the hyperbole that certain fitness influencers use. He is also very detailed in his research. He's also very smart, so he knows how to break down research. So if you find a study that says artificial sweeteners, specifically in the things like stevia, the more natural ones, are
Mm-hmm.
bad for you. He's like, well, is that really what this study says? And we'll explain things
Love
like
that.
that.
Yep.
So there was one I was actually uh, listening to today while I was working out, where he broke down erythritol
Mm-hmm.
and how that there was a study out there that showed basically the study showed that it had heart disease. However, when you looked at the participants in the study, like 70% of them had already had a heart attack.
Right.
So like,
Got to be careful
yeah,
when
you
you
got to
look at
watch
the
that.
studies. Just because a study says something, it's sometimes taken out of context, and you have to actually read the whole study to know. My number one is actually like a huge influence, and has been for many years. So, Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, she is a scientist. She was the founder of the AIP approach, which was the autoimmune protocol, or autoimmune paleo, some people called it, which was an approach to eating that I followed years ago when I was trying to naturally get rid of my autoimmune disease. And that particular protocol involved an incredibly restrictive 30 days of, I mean, basically, you were only allowed to eat wild caught fish, grass fed beef, your organic poultry,
That was expensive.
most fruits, some vegetables, but excluding the entire nightshade family. So, like, no tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, anything like that, potatoes. So, what you were left with was no dairy, no grains, no nuts or seeds, no beans or legumes. And you basically did a reset of your body for 30 days. Now, after that, you would add one food at a time. And I mean, restrictive to the point, think of beans and legumes. Coffee is a bean. So, yes, I gave up coffee for 30 days. Yes. Now,
But I didn't know you then.
what I did find is that my body did, in fact, respond to that. And I had far less inflammation, and I know what food triggers. But what she has found, and what I really appreciate, is as science evolves and people learn more and scientists learn more, she has changed. And some people really like give her a hard time over this because she used to be, it had to be all organic. She doesn't say that anymore. She's done some research. She has done her own research, and she's done research of other studies to find that maybe it doesn't have to be organic. And what she is doing recently is she has come up with something, and she has a book out, and what she terms it is nutrivore, which is like a play off omnivore, carnivore,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's about the nutritional value of food that she has assigned based on ridiculous research. And pretty much any food you can find and that you would eat is assigned a value in. And what she's doing is saying that the balance has to be, the more diverse food that you eat, the better off you are, and the lower rate of all cause mortality. And everything is based on these scores. So some foods that you think would have like a super high score maybe really don't, but you'd be surprised at what does.
Oh, I wouldn't. I get. Well, I mean, after last week with the white bread being higher than
And
a
gummy
Jolly
bears.
Ranchers, right?
Gummy bears and them being so close. So if you look up anybody, Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, or look up the book Nutrivore
Mm-hmm.
and check it out, it is really interesting stuff. And she was able to admit that in some ways she was wrong, and in some ways that approach caused disordered eating in a lot of people. Not that she caused it, but people kind of got disordered in their eating, thinking that all these foods were so bad for your body, and in fact they were not.
That's a big thing. And so it's funny. I always think things go in cycles as we do more research. And one of the things we were like, everything needs to be organic. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Everything needs to be organic. And now it's kind of like, well, yeah, it could,
We
but
talked about that on a previous show.
well, I don't know.
I'm
I've
not
always been.
100% sold now.
I've never been 100% sold, but I'm gonna say, all right, my number one, and this when I started really getting through my fitness journey was I was really getting back into the gym. I googled something or typed into YouTube looking
Mm.
to learn. I think it was how to deadlift. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I came across a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cavalier and
Yep.
his company called Athlean X.
Yep.
I learned a shit ton.
He is pretty cool.
He is. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are some things I don't like about him. One of the things that I do is he has a very not but restrictive approach to nutrition. Meaning he admits it. So I'm going to say that. So I do give him credit for that. But he admits that he is on his diet 99% of the time, which is why he's able to.
Which is why he looks the way
But
he
he does, right?
does.
He is
Right.
super shredded. They say he walks around in single digit body fat. He doesn't drink.
All the time.
Right. He doesn't drink. He doesn't. He
Right.
says he's never done drugs. He's never smoked a cigarette. So basically, the guy has never been out of shape in his life. He is a licensed physical, or was. I don't know if he still is, but he was a licensed physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
He has also been a trainer, and not a trainer as in personal trainer, but a trainer as in an athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
In Major League Baseball. He has also trained in the gym. Some of my favorite athletes who are professional wrestlers.
Right.
The thing that I like most about him, and the thing that really drove me to him, he's one of the first because all of these other names that I've mentioned on this list, I mean, other than John Cena, um, were are at some have at some point of their lives been competed in bodybuilding.
Okay.
Okay, when I started really going down the fitness rabbit hole, I never wanted to look like a bodybuilder. I never wanted to be a bodybuilder. The idea of bodybuilding never really appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
However, the idea of being lean, being athletic always did. And a lot of what Jeff talks about is how to train in a more athletic manner because that is who his
Right.
target clientele is.
Right.
Are higher profile athletes. Like I said, he's trained with some of my favorite WWE wrestlers. He's trained with Antonio Brown before he went crazy. He trained with there was another one recently. He's trained with a few actors here and there. One of my favorite wrestlers, Finn Balor,
Mm-hmm.
who has you want to talk about a set of abs on somebody. Um, so I like that he likes to take those athletic movements and transfer and show you how they can benefit you in real life.
Right.
Because I do think when you break down movements in almost any sport, to some extent, I mean, obviously there's outliers and there's extremes because it's a sport. But when you break down movements in sports, most of them translate to something in real life. The idea of teaching an athlete how to have a stronger jump cut. Well, guess what? If someone's walking to you and you need to get out of the way and you need to sidestep something or
Mm-hmm.
someone, that's pretty much a low intensity jump cut. Being able to pick yourself up, God forbid, off of a cliff or a ladder is doing a pull up. No, I mean you're not going to do a nipping pull up or a muscle up like you would in some sort of what's the word, calisthenic competition, but you might find yourself in that position someday. There's a lot of things that I like about this, and this is just one. He was just one of those guys that really sort of spoke to me and
Mm-hmm.
and the goals that I had. He also is not has talked about some of the more mental health related aspects of fitness,
Yep.
which I absolutely, and I've talked about this very openly on my struggle with mental health and suicidal behavior. I've talked about it very openly on this show. He admits that. He also talks about some of the dangers of taking a performance enhancing drugs, specifically in the bodybuilding community,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in more non-body that has sort of been finding its way into the gym more on a everyday level now. He's just one of those guys that if you listen to him, and yes, some of his detractors will talk about some of his um some of his titles are very clickbaity. Guess what? Everybody's titles are clickbaity.
Well, if you're clickbaity, that's why they have that many followers.
Right. Well, and I hate to say it, when I come up with the names for these episodes, believe me, that's what is going to grab somebody's attention.
Right.
The one we did about getting big a couple weeks ago, when I came up with
the cost.
No, the size matters.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, like I specifically wanted to go, huh? What is everybody? That's specifically why I came up with that title.
Right.
You know, so I don't fault people for that. Like I said, my only real gripe with him is that I feel like his lifestyle is not a quote unquote sustainable lifestyle. It obviously is because he's done it.
He is
for most people,
but the average person will not
I feel
walk around in single-digit body fat every day.
Nor should you have to, and I think that's another. I mean, that's almost another.
I mean, that's his life, and that's great. But
but again, he is
said,
in one of his videos one time he said, "Look, this is my job. There is a certain amount of practice what I preach." One of the things that I preach, and Matt Wilson and I have had talked about. If you go through Matt Wilson's social media, you'll never see a picture of him drinking a beer. You'll never see a picture of him chowing down on pizza. Guess what? You go through mine, you'll see those things.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? I'm the one who preaches, and no offense to Matt because he knows I love him, but I'm the one who preaches. I do these things. I do these things in the gym, so I can do this.
Right.
When the time is right.
And I'm just about balance.
Right. Well, it's the same thing.
Right. I mean, balance.
Right.
I mean, but mine looks different. You know.
Well, and then again, I feel like, and again, we could probably veer this show into another show, but that is a thing. Is everybody's balance is different. You know, Jeff Cavalier's balance is 90 now eating carrot cake once a year. Dave Webster's balance is it's Friday night. Are we having pizza or am I making spaghetti? You know, Matt Wilson's balance is I'm eating chicken, rice, and broccoli every day.
Maybe the occasional
protein ball,
beef or something.
He does eat beef. He does eat beef. But again, in your balance, what you talked about a couple of weeks ago when you had the Oreos that you had made for your daughter's shower.
Yeah, that I had, and I looked at the serving size was 2, and I ate 2, and I walked away. And do I feel guilty about it? Absolutely not.
And you shouldn't. And if there's one thing I will say I took away from Jeff is not to assign feelings to you, whether it's your cheat meals, whether it's missing your workouts. Guess what? Missing your workouts is no different than forget going to the grocery store and forgetting to pick up the
as long as it doesn't turn into a month of missing, but there is time, and we've talked about that. There's times when you just can't. And, and admittedly, I'm usually good about accountability posting when I work out.
Mm-hmm.
And last several weeks, I mean, I'm healing a broken toe. That's kind of set me back a little bit, but dealing with family
still work, don't they?
issues. Yeah. But you know what I did the other day? I did an upper body band workout.
Okay.
Because I knew that if I came in here, I was going to do other things. But the bottom line is sometimes when life hits you, there is that balance. And I think we strike that. To me.
Who, us?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is what we preach.
That's what we do and what we preach.
What's my favorite line? And I actually haven't said this in a while. We're not here to be athletes. We're not here to be bodybuilders. We're not here to be swimsuit models. What we're here for is to have a longer and healthier quality of life.
Correct.
All right. So now you know how Carol and I got to be here and the people who influenced us. So join us next week when we are going to talk about the magic bullet. That's right. The magic bullet. The one little piece of fitness advice that everyone always asks me, how'd you lose all the weight? How'd you lose all the weight? And we're going to talk about the magic bullet next week. So join us next week when we break that down. Until then, follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at She Lifts, He Lifts Podcast. Check out Carol, Love Yourself Health Coaching on Facebook and Instagram. Follow me, Rockstar Fitness on Facebook, DWebster023 on Instagram, Coach Dave's Country Kitchen on YouTube. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, woo!